My name is Kojo Yankson. Thank you for sharing your afternoon with me. Let's get started. Disturbing details are emerging regarding how parts of President Akufo Addo's own garden at Kyebi was allegedly destroyed by illegal miners in search of gold. This is contained in a report authored by former Environment Minister Professor Frimpong Boateng. Now, Prof. Boateng alleges he had to actually dispatch a bulldozer and an excavator to restore the vegetation cover at the president's residence. There is pressure mounting on government and the security agencies to take action on the report. John Jinapo is ranking member of Parliament's Mines and Energy Committee. All right, now we'll bring you those details later. My colleague Elton Brobe joins us right now with details from the report and what it reveals about the president's garden. Elton, thank you for your time this afternoon. Let's talk about the cousin of the president, Gabby Otchere, whose name has come up in this report as well. Give us the context here.
Right. So, yesterday, I think we started a discussion on this matter, and Gabby's name appears in the report by Professor Frimpong Boateng. Now, according to Professor Frimpong Boateng, whilst in the process of raiding the forest reserves of, illegal miners, they came across a mining company that was, mining deeply in one of the forest reserves in the eastern region. The name of this company is called Heritage Mining. So he said that when they confronted them, the mining company was able to produce a license that only entitles them to explore for gold in that reserve. And so they wanted to understand why the license they had only allowed them to explore, but rather they were mining in the forest. And according to Professor Frimpong Boateng, the company officials who were then in the process of mining could not offer any tangible explanation. Indeed, one of them excused them. And whilst interacting with the others, he gave instruction to the police officers to seize the mining equipment. And then he got a call from Gabby Otchere, who is cousin to President Akufo Addo. Now, he did not explain the conversation that took place between the two of them, only to conclude that Gabby asked him to allow the mining company to continue with its operations. Now, he described it as very shocking, and I'm becoming somebody who is very close to the president. So he went to the president and then made a report to the president about the conduct of Gabby Otchere and asked the president to, investigate the matter. The response he got from President Akufo Addo was that he was going to look into the matter, and that's how the matter ended as it relates to Gabby Otchere. His claim in the document is that the company, Heritage Mining, did not have a mining license as of that time, but was only given a license to go into the forest reserve and explore for gold. Successful, then they will go back to the Minerals Commission and then request for mining license to operate. But when they met them at the forest reserve, they were already mining. Now, Gabby has a response to this matter. I don't know whether we can go into that.
Do we have Gabby's response? Why don't we? Okay, we will be playing that. We don't have it ready at the moment.
So Gabby this morning, gave us a response. In fact, first of all, he admits that he made a call to Professor Frimpong Boateng whilst they were in the process of, enforcing the no mining in a forest reserve. Now, here's his take. He says the mining company is a client to his law firm, Africa Legal Associates. And the mining company's operations were in the hands of a lawyer who works in his law firm. So this lawyer comes to him, and then the discussion was that their client, Heritage Mining, was facing resistance from the Inter-Ministerial Committee against illegal mining in the operational area. And so he asked Gabby to intervene. So Gabby said he called Professor Frimpong Boateng and then told him that the people you've asked them to stop operations, they have all the requisite permits to undertake mining. And for that reason, whatever they were doing in the forest reserve did not amount to illegal mining. Professor Frimpong Boateng's response was that, fair enough, but what they produced so far entitles them to explore, but they are rather mining. And he said that this was the conversation, and that's how the matter ended. His argument is that it is shocking that a private conversation between Professor Frimpong Boateng and a lawyer who was only seeking to understand the circumstances under which his client's mining operations had been halted will find expression in the document that is seeking to portray him as somebody who worked to frustrate the effort of Professor Frimpong Boateng from carrying out a duty assigned him by President Akufo Addo. So this is Gabby's, reaction to the matter in question.
Right. Now let's move into the president's back garden, where it appears Galamsey was going on until Professor Frimpong Boateng was alerted. Give us the detail.
Exactly, and again, he goes on to say that whilst in Accra, he received a call from a national security operative that somebody, he described this person as the regional youth organizer of the MPP in the Asian region. Right. And this regional youth organizer of the MPP in the Asian region was involved in illegal mining in a place quite close to the residence of President Akufo Addo at Kyebi, which is the president's hometown in the Eastern region. He said he sent some people to go and verify the information, and the report was that the information was credible. Now, when he went there, the miner had actually degraded part of the president's garden in the president's residence at Kyebi in the Eastern region, unknown to the president. So he had to arrange for a bulldozer and an excavator to go and reclaim the land and to restore the vegetative cover of this property belonging to the number one gentleman of the land, the president, who had given directive that illegal mining should not continue.
Right. We're going to reestablish the connection with Elton Broby so that we can get the rest of that narrative. But so far, so surprising, since the president himself was in the vanguard, leading the fight against Galamsey and had put his own presidency on the line. It does appear to be quite a remarkable detail that his own garden was being mined for gold. I believe we have Elton. Have we reconnected with Elton? If you can hear us, Elton, and you can unmute, we'd love for you to continue that narrative.
This miner had undertaken what Professor Frimpong Boateng describes in the document as illegal mining, and had the audacity to mine in the compound of the president, who had given directive against the continuous operation of illegal mining across every part of the country. So he explains the extent of which the president directive was disregarded in this manner. He said this exemplifies the extent to which people disregarded the directive of the president against illegal mining. But through his intervention, they were able to get some excavator to restore the degraded land, and then also the vegetative cover. There's also an allegation against Kwejo Okonkwo, and then just some few minutes ago, Kwejo Okonkwo has responded to this allegation. I don't know whether you might want us to go into this.
Let's do that. My understanding is that the report made an accusation against the information minister, suggesting that he was somehow involved in a plot to discredit Professor Frimpong Boateng. What else do we know?
So the allegation is that, according to Professor Frimpong Boateng, the claim is that an unknown person called him to inform him that Kwejo Okonkwo had held a meeting of MPP and NDC journalists on February 8, 2020 in Dodowa to discuss a strategy to bring him, Professor Frimpong Boateng, down. He suggests that this is the cause of subsequent negative media reports about him. The second allegation is that on the 13th of February 2020, Kwejo Okonkwo started a brief to cabinet with a report on Frimpong Boateng and Mason excavators. And he creates an impression that this brief to cabinet was a deliberate and sinister act targeted at him. The third allegation is that media appearances after the 2020 elections, Kojo Oppong had mentioned that the effects of the fight against illegal mining contributed to the MPP's performance. Again, the impression created in the report is that this was a sinister attempt to blame him for the fortunes of the MPP in some mining companies. Now, Kojo Oppong has a detailed account. He says these constitute a summary of the allegations against him. And he says that question about how he handled the fight against illegal mining in Galamsey and calls to substantiate his claims that Jubilee House officials are involved in Galamsey operations. These allegations against my person do not answer the question being asked of him. At best, they are red herrings aimed at drawing my name in the mud. He says, to these allegations against me, I hereby respond as follows. He admits that there was a meeting in February 2020. He said, I was invited to go to address to PRIMPAC. PRIMPAC is Newspaper Printers Association of Ghana, and jointly organized with the Bank of Ghana on financial reporting. This event was no secret. It was widely promoted on media platforms and my personal social media handle as well, and provide evidence to the effect that he posted about the event subsequently. He said, as customary, I was received by the organizers. And then how the ministers mapped this event into a secret strategy conclave with his downfall as the objective is completely beyond my imagination. The participants from Bank of Ghana, PRIMPAC will be shocked and saddened to read this claim of such an otherwise highly held man. And he said there was a question. Indeed, the facts are that Professor Akufo himself wrote to the Ghana Police Service in 2020 reporting the loss of some excavators and calling for an investigation. It was Professor Akufo himself who, in subsequent media interviews, mentioned that the number of excavators missed was about 500. And he says again, in 2020 February, it was Professor Akufo himself who, at Parliament House, during interviews on the State of the Nation address, engaged in exchanging with the media about the said excavators and promised that they will be recovered. For the record, these are matters that occasioned the media report about Professor Akufo and the said excavators, and he could never have been the source of this information. He ended by saying, I have nothing but great admiration for Professor public spirited works as an inspirational citizen. I feel gravely offended over the false claim he has made and the hurtful conclusion he has sought to exert about me, precisely because of the great esteem which I've heard him. I trust that in the coming months and years, he will reflect deeply upon his own actions and comments which have led to these challenges. He should kindly leave me out of his personal fight. I am utterly disappointed, but I forgive him.
Fascinating. Now, the former Member of Parliament for Mansong Kwanta also came up for mention. What's his deal?
So Professor Akufo exemplified as somebody who abused his office. Now, a little background about this, Albert Kwam, is that he's a former member of Mansong Kwanta. Now, Albert Kwam has a background in mining and reclamation. In fact, even as we speak, he's at the final stage of his PhD in mining and reclamation. So in 2017, when the government won power, he was then a sitting member of parliament. Now, when President Akufo Addo declared the war against illegal mining, my information is that he was among few technocrats within the MPP who had so much knowledge about the mining industry and how best government can, monetize it and also find alternative livelihood for those who are involved in illegal mining. So he was consulted and he was tasked to put together a document that will be the basis of when government will deal with the issue of illegal mining and also propose ways to ensure that those who will be affected will be taken care of economically. He tells me in an interview we had this morning that document is what formed the basis for the fight against illegal mining. It was that same document that Professor Akufo used in the fight against illegal mining. Based on this, he was appointed to the board of the Minerals Commission. Now, the allegation against him by Professor Akufo is that he used his position to sell off concessions in his area, Mansong Kwanta. And this is a very mineral-rich community in the Ashanti region. If you go there, you will find so many legal mining operations there. And on the other side, illegal mining operations also going on in Mansong Kwanta. He says it's not true and that he's not sold any mining concession in his constituency. He says when he was a board member of Minerals Committee, there were occasions where the work of the Interministerial Committee was discussed, and he always had a goal with Professor Akufo Addo on some of the strategies they had adopted. And so he has documents to prove that he was not involved. He has documents also to prove about the kind of discussions that went on at the board level and how some people in government were neck deep in illegal mining, and he promises to share on Newsfile tomorrow.
Now, this is a rather big one. Senior journalist Abdul Malik Kweku Bakun also made an appearance in this report. Tell us more.
So Kweku Bakun's issue is about C&J. C&J is a mining company belonging to a Canadian, two individuals. And same as Heritage, Professor Akufo Addo said that they met them in a forest reserve mining. So they seized their equipment, set some ablaze, and then actually recommended for the arrest of these individuals. He says he got a call from Kweku Bakun Jr., who told him that one of the people was actually a friend, one of these Canadians, and that the people, Kweku Bakun, in his own write-up on his Facebook page, says that he told Professor Akufo Addo that the people were never involved in illegal mining, and he had documents to prove that. So Professor Akufo Addo says that Kweku Bakun then prevailed upon him for a meeting between himself and officials of C&J mining, and he said that he was not personally part of this meeting. Professor Akufo Addo's conclusion is that when he refused the offer from Malik Kweku Bakun Jr. to allow for a truce and to allow C&J mining company to go on with their work, the next day, the Proceeding Guide newspaper, Kweku Bakun is a co-publisher, started stories that maligned him, that impugned on his integrity. That even created an impression that he, as chairman of the Interministerial Committee, was actually doing illegal mining. And he's produced some of the newspaper publications in this document to the Chief of Staff. Now, Kweku Bakun, in the write-up, admitted that some of the media reportage may not have be the best. And he said that as co-publisher of the Proceeding Guide newspaper, he was ready and willing to offer an apology. Or better so, if Professor Akufo Addo feels strongly that he's been maligned, the Media Commission is there for him to seek redress or write a return, or better still go to court. So that was the crux of it, and that at no point did he try to interfere in the work of the Interministerial Committee. So there's been allegation, there's been some admittance of the meeting or some, back behind the scenes conversation. But what we are seeing is some denying it outright, that what they are being accused of doing didn't happen, even though there may have been some overtures, there have been some meetings here and there. We went to see Professor Akufo Addo. We've tried to reach him. He says that he's now a subject of investigation before the police investigation department, and he's going through investigation. So he wouldn't be fair on his part to now disclosing things he's telling the police in the public domain.
Right.
But he said that he's the one who authored it. He's not taking anything out, and he's not adding anything. Whatever is written represents what happened during his time as chair of the committee.
Let me ask you on the Kweku Bakun issue. I mean, exactly how far did the senior journalist go in his admission that perhaps some of his publications were not the best? Did he actually admit that he was incorrect in characterizing Prof. Frimpong Boateng as a person engaged in Galamsey?
So, let me just quote what he says. He said he had no direct editorial or operational involvement in the publication by his newspaper. However, as co-publisher of the paper, I have responsibility here. He further asked that he simply called the minister to arrange meetings for managers of the said company, C&J Mining Company. He admits that he indeed told the minister that he was friends with one of the owners and that they were engaged in legal mining, and will be providing documents to prove this once they meet him. He says that he was never part of this meeting. He only reached out to the minister because of relationship he has with one of the miners. And so it's unclear whether that telephone call was to get the minister off the back of C&J Mining Company Limited, or to get the minister to look the other way, or to tell the minister that the people are not doing Galamsey, they are doing legal mining, and these are the past, and that you, chairman, you are wrong in pursuing them. These are questions that perhaps will require some answers on the part of Professor Akufo Addo and indeed on the part of Akufo Jr. The contents of this conversation, whether it was to get him off the case or to say that the people have the requisite documents to allow them to work. And I'm sure there are so many questions you will allow to ask.
Undoubtedly. And I've got to say, I mean, the topic on which most of the questions revolve is the president's garden. I mean, what have we learned? This house that is owned by the president in Kyebi, is it unoccupied? Is it conceivable that the president's house could be, the site of an illegal mining operation without the president's knowledge?
I can't be categorical that the house is occupied or unoccupied. In fact, as presidential correspondent, I remember that in 2017, when we accompanied the president to vote in his constituency at Kyebi, after voting, we went to the residence. But I think lunch had been arranged for the president, some supporters of the party, and as it's quite a very large compound. The house is not so big, but at least about 5-acre land. Yeah, that's how big the house, with a lot of trees, the president's, station with trees and gardening and all those issues. So you will find a lot of that. In fact, the house, I think, if I'm not mistaken, the house shares wall with residents of Honorable Atachin. So quite a very large area. But what I can't say for sure is whether it's occupied or unoccupied. So the only few times that we've gone to Kyebi with the president, you usually go there for lunch and then we'll return to Accra. It is possible that there may not be so many people living in the house. That is how come. But to the extent that this Galamsey had the audacity and the infantry to do or to mine in a place of the commander-in-chief of the Ghana Armed Forces, the president of the republic, with all the powers and the resources at his disposal. This person has no regard for the person in whom property is mining gold, and he will go ahead and mine and destroy the vegetation cover of their house.
I think you are right when you characterize the effrontery that somebody would have to do such a thing. I suppose that raises the question, how did he get away with it? Because we don't have any records that any person was prosecuted for this, do we?
No, we don't have any record. In fact, the name is mentioned. In fact, Professor Boba described him as the youth organizer of the MPP in the Eastern region. And he mentions the name as well. And he said that he reported this matter was reported to him by one of the bodyguards of the president. And I want to assume that the bodyguard may have whispered into the ears of the president about.
Well, that is an interesting detail.
When you got the information.
That is an interesting detail.
That's what Professor.
So allegedly,
he got the information from one of the bodyguards of the president. Yes, exactly. And that this person also works with national security. That this is what is going on. You need to have your men come here and check and quickly do something about it. When he got there, he was shocked at the scale of the destruction to the property of the president. And then he quickly organized an excavator and a bulldozer to restore the degraded land. But he doesn't say what happened to this person, whether the matter was reported. But there are several occasions in the document he says that I met the president, I told him what was going on. The president says you will look into it, and then no response came.
This is such an interesting document. And of course, all these allegations are subject to investigation, which, as we are made to understand, the president has called for investigations following the accusation that Professor Frimpong Boateng made that there are people at the presidency involved in illegal mining. Now, as part of the response to that investigation, this document was provided by Professor Frimpong Boateng. Do we know at all how seriously or otherwise the authorities are taking this document?
So this is a 2021 document. So it is safe to say that all that is contained in this document may have happened between 2017 and 2020. So this document was presented to the Chief of Staff right after President Akufo Addo assumed office for the second term. On the first directive came from the Chief of Staff, and the letter dated 17th of February 2021. The Chief of Staff directed him, Professor Frimpong Boateng, to update her office on the work of the Interministerial Committee on Mining, and then to offer solutions to how to deal with it. Because by that time, Professor Frimpong Boateng was going out of government. So they more like a handover notes, if you like. And so Professor Frimpong Boateng followed up and then gave this report in February, March. Within a month, he had put together all of the pictures, the satellite images of the degraded forests across the country where mining is taking place and all that. And then he gave it to them. 2021, 2022, and 2023. He says that most of the documents we find are, described as confidential. So clearly, it was a matter between him and the person who asked him to put together this document. The only reason why he's come out to confirm is that he's not the one who leaked this document. Whoever leaked it, we should investigate between the Chief of Staff office and where he first heard it. He says when he first heard it on Kyebi Taylor's program, and he realized that most of the things in the document had been distorted on that particular program. So he was then forced to come out and say that this is my report, but the aspects that are being discussed is not part of what I wrote. This is what, according to him, forced him to now bring out what he wrote to the Chief of Staff, and that is what has become a subject of this intense debate across the country.
Has there been any indication from the Chief of Staff's office about what action they took once they received this document in 2021?
Well, most of the people who are mentioned are still at post. So, as for action, it will not be fair to say that perhaps not much has been done about this. There are a lot of people who've been mentioned in the document that are still at post. Illegal mining is still ongoing, but in some of the areas, there are people who've been mentioned. They work at the Jubilee House. They wake up every morning. They go to work. But there's somebody who's been mentioned whose office at the Jubilee House is about 10 steps from the office of the Chief of Staff. 10 steps in the Chief of Staff office. So it's safe to say that he works in the Chief of Staff Secretariat. Somebody she probably sees every day. That person is still at post. So in terms of the investigation, maybe it's still ongoing. Maybe the only investigation we know so far about illegal mining as it relates to somebody close to government is the one that is being pursued by the Office of the Special Prosecutor against Charles Bissiou. And even that one, the frustration that is going on in terms of the Office of the Special Prosecutor getting them to appear in court. So apart from that, there is none, absolutely. Unless the presidency can say that this is what we've done. Professor Frimpong Boateng's allegations were directed to the CID. Maybe the CID may have invited other people who will be mentioned in this document. We don't know yet. So we can assume that the CID is looking into everybody who has been mentioned.
Or maybe they are all at post because they've been cleared. We don't know. But we will continue to seek information. And Elton, it's always a pleasure to have you walk us through some of these very fascinating details. We appreciate your time.